Where's Yisel? Yisel Chava?
She's here.
Yeah.
I guess she's doing something.
What's your name again?
Joya?
No, Freda. Freda. Joy and Freda is the same thing. I have a daughter by the same name, Freda. So we're learning the story of what happened the day before Hashem gave us the Torah. According to the Gemara, and it's a little bit of a controversy, but according to the Gemara, we were given the Torah on Shabbos. According to the Gemara, we've been Torah on Shabbos. That entire week, again, following the one opinion that we're following, we're not doing the different opinions. Starting from Monday was the Chassidus. The Torah was given on the 6th of the month, which was the 7th day of the week. Every day something else happened. Every day something else happened. The Jewish people were slowly being prepared to receive the Torah from the Eibishter. Of course, one of the most fateful events, which is the event that we talk about, is that the Jewish people rejected the idea that someone was going to speak to them on behalf of God. They said, if we're making a deal with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we're doing business with God, God's going to have to speak to us personally. God's going to have to speak to us directly. And the Lashon Rashi brings it from the Chazal, that say, we want to meet the king directly. And that's very much a part of the story, that Yidden insisted on meeting Hashem directly, which means in practical terms they insisted on becoming Nevi'im, prophets. And we all know how that worked out. As soon as they experienced the prophecy, they expired, and they brought them back, and they expired, and they brought them back, and they expired. And they finally told Moshe Rabbeinu, let's go back to the first plan. You'll be the prophet, and we'll be the Shlobs. That's the story. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu had a custom. His custom was that he only went up the mountain early in the morning, according to Rashi. Only went up the mountain early in the morning. Which meant that Moshe Rabbeinu could visit God once a day. Moshe Rabbeinu could visit Eibishter once a day. Early in the morning, he'd get up, he'd climb top of the mountain, he'd have a conversation with Eibishter, he'd go down. The rest of the day, he was busy with the people. He wouldn't go back till the next morning. And he only spoke to Hashem from the top of the mountain. So there was never more than one communication with Hashem each day, because he only went up in the morning. So Tuesday, which was the 2nd of Sivan, he went up and came down with a message. Wednesday he went up and he came down with a message. Thursday he went up and came down with a message. Friday he didn't go up. Why didn't he go up? Because he was busy. What was he busy with? He was busy preparing the Jewish people to receive the Torah. I'm assuming, although it doesn't say, that Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in the mitzvahs Perishus. He was teaching Jewish people how you become ready to be a prophet of God in 48 hours. Normally, becoming a prophet of God takes a lifetime. They had 48 hours. Do what normally takes a lifetime. Oh, welcome. So Moshe Rabbeinu was busy. By the way, I want you to know that I gave you copies last week. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you new ones. I'm giving you new ones this week. Good morning. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Girls, the copies I gave you last week, I don't want to say that you should discard them, but you should discard them. Because I did more work on the Sikha. Please distribute these. So the old ones you should put away. You should put them in Shemus. Because you're going to get confused by having two of the same Sikha. There are staples here, but no stapler. Is that a stapler? Oh, you have a stapler. Wow, this is an amazing phenomena. Staplers with staples. Und alle gute Sachen. That's like real mamish. Extraordinary. Shall we? Okay, let's go. So Friday, the eve of Hashem giving us the Torah, Moshe was very busy. These are the extras of this here. Because of this busyness, Moshe didn't get to the top of the mountain. But what was he busy with? Well, like I said before, I would like to believe, although I can't prove this, that he was busy with in teaching people perishus, teaching people how you become a prophet in 48 hours, which is an impossible task. And it didn't work out so geschmack, as we all know the story. And he was also busy converting the Jewish people. The 3 sichas that we learned before this one, I think it's 3, all talked about the process of conversion. We were converted. What we learned is, number one, the most important part of the conversion is nasa v'nishma. The acquiescence is the acceptance of doing mitzvahs. But along with that, there were other factors. There was a bris milah, there was a korban, and there was mikveh. We also learned that their Gedus was incomplete for 2 different reasons. Number one, there's no korban until Mashiach comes, and we explained why that's not a problem. Number 2, their Gedus was incomplete because they hadn't yet gotten the whole Torah. You cannot commit to the whole Torah until you receive the whole Torah. With all of these in Yonah. So a lot of things happened on Friday. So Moshe was busy. So every day besides for Friday, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, as the Jewish people stood at the foot of the mountain, Moshe climbed the mountain, had a schmooze with the Eibishter, came back down, did what he needed to do, but as I told you before, he wouldn't go back up till the next day, except for Friday. This sicha is wonderful. What makes it wonderful is that I never learned it before, I'm embarrassed to say. And it hit me right here, boom, wow. It's a whole nother spin. It's a moidendike spin. It's an incredible spin. My only problem is that now that I learned the sicha, I know that I really shouldn't teach it now. I should first do nasa v'nishma, and then I should do the sicha. I'm teaching the sichas in the wrong order. So, but I'm not. I prepared this. I don't have nasa v'nishma material ready. We're going to learn this sicha. After the sicha, we're going to go back to nasa v'nishma, even though when I do the nasa v'nishma sicha, I'm going to point out to you that I really should have done that first. Because what's going to happen in this sicha is really, really counterintuitive. It goes against what you're thinking. And I'll tell you how. The Torah is given to us on Shabbos morning. Saturday morning we get the Torah. This is Friday. We're preparing. All the sichas that we've been learning about that Friday are pointing out how it's only prefatory, it's only preparation. It's not the real thing. Because until you actually get the Torah, everything you do before is leading to it, it's setting it up, but it's not it. That was the spirit of all the sichas we learned until now. Well, this sicha is the exact opposite spirit. This sicha is actually going to argue that on Friday, the day before the Eibusha gave us the Torah, what the Torah would be about when they would get it the next day is already being implemented. In contrast to the 3 sichas we learned before this one, we talk about the conversion of the Jewish people and the deficiencies in their conversion because it was pre-Matan Torah. This sicha, which is also talking to the same days, talking to the same Fridays, actually going to focus on the opposite idea. At the day before we receive the Torah, we're receiving the Torah. One of the things that the Rebbe is going to do in the Sikha, in the part that we're not going to learn, is the Rebbe is going to talk about Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov, the day before Shabbos and the day before Yom Tov. And he's going to make an argument. The day before Shabbos is not just preparation for Shabbos, it's actually part of Shabbos. And the day before Yom Tov is not just preparations for Yom Tov, it's actually part of Yom Tov. That logic, which the Rebbe, of course, argues from a Lomdisha point of view, is going to explain how the day before we received the Torah, in certain aspects, we were living as if the Torah was given. This is a different spin, it's a different angle on this Friday, on this day before Hashem actually came down on the mountain and spoke to every single Jewish man and woman and child and gave us the Torah from the sichas that we had until now. Go ahead.
I didn't really get the timeline. If on Friday he was supposed to explain them how to do Isha, but then it's not 48 hours because the next day they're going to get the Torah.
You see, I didn't say that on Friday he explained the Prisha. I said he continued explaining the Prisha.
Okay.
From Thursday he was busy with the Prishas. You have to understand something, okay? I've been learning Chumash my whole life. I'm pretty familiar with this book, you know what I'm saying? I've been around the Chumash, if you wanted a number, 55 years. I'm 59 years old. Since I'm 4 years old, I'm learning Chumash. And as a child, you learn it with a teacher, you learn a few lines and then you're so excited. When you get a little older and you do that thing called chitas, right? Especially if you have enough seichel, not just to read it, but to say it. How many times have I learned the Chumash in chitas? 40 times? At least. 45 times? Probably. So you become very familiar with the Chumash. You become very familiar with the Chumash. And one of the realities of being familiar with anything is what you call preconceived notions. You assume certain things. You assume certain things. Then, because of those preconceptions, you have sort of a box of how the Torah works. Something happens, and you're triggered to think outside of that box. Something comes to you. I was not thinking about this correctly, and then a whole new point of view emerges. You have to understand that I had this obsession with this idea that the Yidden asked Moshe Rabbeinu to become Nevi'im, and Moshe Rabbeinu was so excited, and the Eibishter tells him it's not going to work. But you must understand, I made that up. I made up that whole speech. It doesn't say any place. It just says that the Eibishter was planning. I'm giving you a new sikha because I did some more work on the sikha, okay? So the one you gave me last week, I'm not giving you back. I'm just going to put your name on it.
Thanks. What name?
Look how I'm spelling your name. Wait a minute, did I give you my original? Did I just give my original? How many pages is this? No, this is not original. This is a copy. Where to put my original? I'm like, out of my mind or out of my mind? Here it is. Here's the original. Okay. I was told that this is going to be a poor turnout. This is pretty good for a poor turnout. Baruch Hashem, no complaints. The Ikir is Udin and the Shaman. It's not how many students you have, it's how well they listen. I'm teaching boys, I'm Beis, which is extremely scholarly. It's really deep. And I have a class. My class is shrinking. I started with 20 guys. I'm down to like 8. But I have a nucleus of chevre boys, 19-year-old boys, who are really with me. They're project with me. And it's the most heartening thing.
I think everyone in this class pays
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I was going to say, I think everyone in this class pays attention to you, and really listens to every word you say.
And I feel it. But as I told them the other night, I said, I've taught Chassidus years, for an entire year, where he had one student, 25 bodies, but one, they were just tuned out. But when you sit in the room and you see that they understand, and they're on the trip with you because they're asking questions that are in context, they're just wandering off. It's so incredibly encouraging. And I feel the same way here. That's why I'm repeating this. Anyway, so I made that whole thing up, that whole drama, that Moshe, the Yidden had no idea what they're getting themselves into. Moshe thought it was a great idea. I made that up. I'm absolutely convinced that it's the truth. But it doesn't say a chumash.
Sorry.
This is a regular, listen, this is part of the class. That little piece of music begins at a certain point. It has to do with your attendance, but this is a weekly Shalom Aleichem. We wouldn't have a class without it. A minute. So that's why, Lee Marie, I'm answering your question. This is why I keep on saying this thing about Precious. Because I'm just freaked out by this. I have spent a lot of time learning Nevuah. You know why? Because I spent a lot of time learning Rambam. I learned all the Rambam Sfarim. I learned the Meir Nevuchim. I learned the philosophy parts of the Pirush HaMishnayos. I learned the Pirkei Avos. I learned his letters. And the Rambam talks about Nevuah Rambam's obsessed with prophecy. I almost feel like that Rambam felt that it was his job to explain prophecy to the world. 5 times the Rambam repeats Nevuah at length, which is very out of character for him. 5 times. And I learned them all. So I'm in that world. And the way that Rambam describes what a person needs to do to be a Navi, the way they need to live, who they need to be as a person, is so rare and so special. And here, every Jew in the world is going to become a Navi with 48 hours of preparation. That whole mindset, that whole story, it freaks me out. And I understand so completely the end of the story. It just platzed. It couldn't not platz, The Eibishter goes along. Moshe thinks it's a great idea. The Eibishter goes along because the Eibishter wanted it. But he also wanted it only for a little bit. So I keep referring back to it because of my wonder about this whole story. So when I said that on Friday I was teaching Pinchas, I made that up also. And he probably continued the day before he started, but every second, you know what it means? 48 hours to become a Navi. Every second that they use their time so exactly. Most Nevi'im spend a lifetime doing that. They had 48 hours. 48 hours. Okay, so that's the answer to your question in context. This Sikha goes in a different direction. And it's a wonderful Sikha. It really is a wonderful Sikha. Because in this Sikha, the Rebbe is going to say the opposite idea of all the Sikhas that we learned until now. The Sikhas until now keep on pointing out that when you're preparing to get the Torah, it's only preparing. It's not the actual Torah. So the Ger is not a complete Gerus. Everything we learned is talking to that direction. Well, this Sikha is going to say the exact opposite. And the key player in this Sikha, what makes the Sikha most special, is that Moshe has to do it himself. Moshe has to do it himself. That's what's going to happen in this class, okay? Now, I didn't tell you anything, but if you have questions somehow, you're welcome to ask anyway. Okay, I'm going to ask somebody to bring me a cup of coffee. Yeah? Milk and sugar, please.
Not poison?
Not poison, right.
Is this the break?
Huh?
Is this the break?
No, this is not the break. We haven't even done anything. It's 10 after 11. I'm starting from the beginning again, please, okay? Now pay attention to the Rebbe's words. Pay attention to the Rebbe's words. Now you have to use the new copies. The old copies are deficient. I spent a lot of time this morning making more lines, okay? We were learning a lot more than I thought we would. The Gemara in the Sugya for Matan Torah, the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos, which tells the whole story how Hashem gave us the Torah. It's a few pages. It's not a few lines. It's a few pages of Gemara that study the entire episode of Matan Torah. In that Gemara, Gemara says as follows: B'sheni b'Sivan, on the second day of Sivan, Ola Moshe v'Yared. He went up to the top of the mountain, and he came back down. You listening? Yeah. B'Shlishi, on the third day of Sivan, Ola Moshe went up the mountain, v'Yared, and he came back down. But Avi, on the fourth of Sivan, which was on a Thursday, Ola, he went up the mountain, v'Yared, and came back down. What about B'chamishi? What happened on the fifth day? Now remember, the fifth day of Sivan is the sixth day of the week. It's Friday. Bana Mizbeach. Moshe builds a Mizbeach. Kediksiv, as the Pasuk says, Vayiva Mizbeach tachas ahar v'rashi. Moshe built a Mizbeach under the mountain. V'hikriv alav karban. On that Mizbeach, he brought a karban. Now girls, you must understand. I don't know if you have access to these pages. Remember these pages, the Chumash pages, right? Yeah. What the Rebbe is going to observe is that there's two karbanos. There's two sets of karbanos brought on the same day. One set of karbanos was brought by the firstborn. The Ne'orim, I think he calls them. What does he call them in the Chumash? What does Moshe Rabbeinu call them? What are they called? Na'arei b'nei Yisrael, the youth, the lads of Israel, the B'chayrim. There was a Mizbeach built, and on the Mizbeach, the Jewish people, I thank you very, very much.
I don't drink milk, so I don't know how much to put
I
in,
see,
so
okay, I thank you very much. Dr. Rosen says, milk are for cows. Okay, so this makes me a cow. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam she'akil niyeh b'dvarim.
Maybe something sweet for Steve?
Pardon me? Where are we?
The fourth day.
The boys brought
On that Friday, there were karbanos brought by the Ne'orim, by the Koyanim. The Koyanim then were the firstborn. Because until the Egel was made, the firstborn were meant to be the Koyanim. And they brought many karbanos. Some of them were oiloi, some of them were consumed by the Mizbeach completely, and some of them were shlomim. They were peace offerings, which is fascinating. That brings one of the footnotes that only a Jew can bring a peace offering. A guy can't bring a peace offering. I pointed this out when we were learning the Sikha, which is another case in point. It's another example where you see that Friday before the Torah was given, in some ways they were behaving as if the Torah had already been given. They brought shlomim. They were peace offerings. But this Gemara is talking about something else. Number one, it's a Mizbeach that Moshe built himself. Number two, on this Mizbeach he brought one carbon. Uno, adin, one carbon. Here's the problem. This Gemara Doesn't say in the Chumash. The Gemara sort of made it up. Friday, the 5th of Sivan, and I'm putting words into the Gemara now, Moshe did not go to the top of the mountain. Why? Answer the question. What do you mean why? He was busy converting the Jewish people. He was busy encouraging them to be Perushim. He was busy bringing carbonas of oil and shlam of the Mechon. He's busy with a lot of stuff. So the Gemara, no, that's not what he was busy with. He built the Mizbeach himself and brought one carbon on it. So this whole Gemara is odd. First of all, what the Gemara says doesn't say in the Pasuk. Second of all, what the Pasuk says is enough. Why does the Gemara have to come up with something new? That on Friday, the 6th of Sivan, Moshe does not go to the top of the mountain, not because he's converting the Jewish people, not because he's busy teaching them about Precious, not because they're bringing multiple karbanos, because he built him his Mizbeach and brought one carbon on it. And the Rebbe is wondering, what's the story here? What's the story? What's this all about? Bottom of the first column, page 15. You guys all know how this works. You read it underlined, you're good. You step out of the lines, you're lost. The tirde von Moshe Rabbeinu b'chamisha b'siv. The tirde, the fatigue, the emotional fatigue, the exhaustedness of Moshe Rabbeinu on that Friday, the 5th of Sivan. To livelcha Moshe Rabbeinu at nit'ele gven lahar, which was so strong. He was so preoccupied on that Friday, the 5th of Sivan, that he was not able to go up to the top of the mountain and talk to the Eibishter. When the Gemara talks about what it was that kept Moshe from climbing to the top of the mountain and having another conversation with the Eibishter, what should the Gemara have said first? The phenomena which we learned about in the last 3 whole seiches of bringing the Jewish people into the covenant. First of all, Valdos is an inyan achi ikri. It's a very important part in the achonis from Kabbalah Satera, from preparing us to receive the Torah, because without that covenant, we're not Jews. That Jews was our Nasav and Ishmael Akabim to the Eibishter, right? And second of all, it was much more labor intensive. Moshe was busy with the whole nation, talking to them about mitzvahs, talking to them about precious, bringing karbanos in plural, right? And yet, the Gemara ignores all of that. The Gemara ignores all of the drama that happened on that Friday and singles out one point, and this one point is even hard to find in the Chumash altogether. Moshe built him his Mizbeach himself, and he brought on it one carbon. Let's keep going, okay? I said something which is not entirely precise, but I'm going to leave it alone, okay? There is the fun mashma, bottom of the second column, page 15. The very fact that although Moshe was busy with so many other things, including many karbanos brought by the Bechayim, and the conversion of the Jewish people collectively, and the mitzvahs precious, which I'm stuck on, nevertheless, the Gemara insists at saying that the reason Moshe did not climb the mountain on Friday, the 5th of Sivan, is because he built the Mizbeach and brought one carbon. That's all proves. Adover chidish gadol. That in the words of this Gemara, which have no basis in the Chumash, the Gemara is saying to us something which is really novel. What is novel? As mitvehikir of alav carbon. When the Gemara says Moshe built a Mizbeach and he brought one carbon on it, main the Gemara nisht. The Gemara does not mean the karbanos. Turn to page 16. Those sacrifices V'achishtayin beperush in pasuk, which are written explicitly in the pasuk, that the firstborn brought, which are oilois lashon rabim, offerings consumed by the mizbeach completely in plural, and shlamim lashon rabim, peace offerings shared by the balabayas, by the Eibishter, by the balabayas, and by the kohen, plural. Noram as Moshe alei not makiv given abazunder carbon. Although on that same day many karbanos were brought, the many karbanos are split. Some of them are oila, some of them are shlomim, but they're being brought by the bechayrim. Moshe brings one carbon, and this one carbon which Moshe Rabbeinu brings, according to the Gemara, is so important that this was the reason why Moshe could not climb the mountain. V'acheshteit nicht in pasuk, which is not in the pasuk. So what we have here is a really odd phenomenon. The phenomena that we have is like this. We all know Moshe was very busy. The Torah records Moshe Rabbeinu's busyness. But the Gemara says Moshe was not busy with all the things that kept him busy. He was busy with something which didn't make him busy. One carbon on the Mizbeach. But he didn't just bring the carbon. He built the Mizbeach himself. So the Rebbe says the psukim imply that Moshe built the Mizbeach, and the koyanim, the B'chayim, brought many karbanos oila, many karbanos shlomim. That's not what makes Moshe Rabbeinu busy. That he got the Jewish people to commit to be Jews, Nasav and Ishmael, is not what kept Moshe Rabbeinu busy. I'm saying this for the fourth time. He spoke about Perishas Mistame. That's not the way he's busy. What was he busy with? Building the Mizbeach and bringing one carbon, which is a separate carbon. And the Rebbe's obvious question is, so what is it about this one carbon that puts it into such a unique space that this is the reason the Gemara gives for Moshe not climbing the mountain? You understand the question?
Yeah.
I was a child, and I learned in a Holy Torah. That was my school. It was called Holy Torah in those days. Now it's called Oli Menachem. Before Gimel Tam was called Holy Torah. After Gimel Tam it became Oli Menachem.
It's another school.
It's the school on the next 2 blocks over, the one with the 2,000 kids. Huh?
Why is it called Olam Menachem now?
They gave it the Rebbe's name after Gimel Tammuz.
Oh, but everyone calls it Oli Torah.
Because that was the name it had from 1957 until 1994. It's hard to change the name. They have to give the school Aliyah by the Sefer Torah and make a Misha Berach. It's called, even the station it says Oli Menachem. Now when I learned in Oli Torah, our teachers all spoke in Yiddish. Now the teachers all speak in English, which is another whole issue. But they were trying to teach us Yiddish as a language. They did a very poor job. It's one of the things Oli Torah does not do well, which is teach people how to read and write a language, which is another whole conversation. But when I was growing up, they tried teaching us Yiddish, and they even tried teaching us Hebrew. We had classes on Yiddish and classes on Hebrew, but they were taught by a teacher who didn't appreciate Yiddish and didn't appreciate Hebrew, so we didn't appreciate what he was teaching us. To teach a language, you have to enjoy language. You know, a teacher who teaches Yiddish and Hebrew, if he enjoys Yiddish, you'll feel his pleasure. So one of the things that Oli Torah tried was that there were 2 booklets given out from Merkez called Unser Buch. Unser Buch were meant to be Yiddish textbooks. Okay, they were very primitive, to go back to probably the 50s. But they were meant to teach us how to read and write Yiddish. They would actually have pages we had to write essays. I remember the Unser Buch, but I don't remember doing any work. I don't know, whatever it is. But in the Unser Buch, there's some really cute stories that are so cute that I saw the Unser Buch the last time 50 years ago, and I still remember them. And when I remind myself of these stories, I smile. One of the stories in the Unser Buch is called Drei Rolls mit a Bagel. Now, rolls, of course, is perfect Yiddish, right? 3 rolls in a bagel. Rolls is an English word, right? The Yiddish word is probably bulke, but okay. Drei Rolls mit a Bagel. You know the story of Drei Rolls mit a Bagel? There was a kid whose name I don't remember. We're going to call him Yossel, because that's my name. And Yossel was hungry. So Yossel's mother gave him a roll. And he ate the roll, and he was still hungry. So his mother gave him a second roll. And Yossel was still hungry. So his mother gave him a third roll, and Yossel was still hungry. So his mother gave him a bagel, and Yossel was satisfied.
Oh, yeah.
And then Yossel thought to himself, what would have happened if I'd eaten the bagel first? If I'd eaten the bagel first, I wouldn't have to eat the 3 rolls. Why? Because the bagel would satisfy me. I ate the bagel, and I satisfied, right? Now, this is one of those, that's the humor, you know. Do I need to explain the joke, or does everybody understand the joke? Drei rolls mit a bagel, right? The 3 rolls didn't satisfy him. The bagel satisfied him. But he was bagel satisfied him because he had the 3 rolls before. Moshe is so busy with 1,000 things. And the Gemara points to the bagel. The Gemara skips the 3 rolls. Moshe converted the whole nation. Moshe got them all to go to mikveh. There were many karbanis brought. Moshe, for the 5th time, was busy with Perishus. This is my presumption. None of that is mentioned in the Gemara. All the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu also made a bagel. He built a mizbeach himself and brought 1 carbon on it. And the Rebbe says, I don't get the Gemara. I don't understand. There were so many other things going on the Gemara ignores. And focuses only on the bagel. And says that because of this bagel, bagels are going to become a euphemism for a carbon brought by Moshe Rabbeinu personally. Moshe could not climb the mountain and have a conversation with the Eibishter on Friday, the 5th of Sivan, the eve of Matan Torah, because of this bagel. What was so special about this bagel? What's so special about this 1 carbon that it's singled out? You understand the question?
Yeah.
You don't?
Yeah.
You do? Did someone say no?
No.
I heard 3 no's just now. Okay, no one said no. Okay. Let's read it inside. Look inside. Nor, page 16, second line from the top. As Moshe allein hat makav given abazunder carbon. Moshe brought a separate carbon, and it was 1 animal. Welcher steht nicht in Pasuk, which is not written in Pasuk. Okay? And because of that bagel, Moshe doesn't climb the mountain, and the Gemara completely ignores the 3 rolls. The Gemara should have said, roll number 1, that they built a mizbeach. Moshe built a mizbeach. Roll number 2, this mizbeach, they brought many karbonis which represented the gears of the Jewish people. Some of them were even shlomim. Roll number 2, 3, I don't know what number we're holding by, They all went to the mikveh. Roll number 4, Moshe Rabbeinu sprinkled the blood on them, which made them into Jews. Roll number 5, they said Nasa v'nishma. Roll number 6, Moshe Rabbeinu talked about Perishus. And the bagel, Moshe brought 1 carbon himself. The Gemara ignores all the rolls, just straight to the bagel. Keep reading. Bringt nicht die Gemara the hemshech hasipur. The Gemara brings nothing that's actually written in the text of the Chumash. And instead, you see what I'm reading? By the number 2 in your Roman numerals. The Gemara stellt rein an neue Minyan. The Gemara adds something new. Welche steht nicht im Pasuk, which is not written in the Pasuk. So the question is, why does the Gemara ignore the rolls and speak only about the bagel? Especially since the rolls are all recorded in the Chumash. And the bagel, which is the carbon Moshe Rabbeinu brings the Mizbeach, is introduced by the Gemara. It doesn't say in the text of the Chumash. And that becomes the reason Moshe Rabbeinu could not make it to the top of the mountain to have a conversation with the Eibishter. I need to tell you, I talk to God from time to time. He always listens. Sometimes I also pay attention. But I never hear his answers. I talk to him. He listens, I'm sure. I also pay attention to what I'm telling you, but I never hear his answers. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he talked to God, you know what I'm saying? It was a 2-way conversation. When you learn Chumash Rashi, you get the distinct impression that Moshe's relationship with the Eibishter was a student to a teacher. And a teacher must answer his students. Rashi said, you learned Chitas this week. You know Chitas this week, Chumash. Did anybody learn Chumash this week? This week's Pasha is top heavy. Half the Pasha, more, 3/5 of the Pasha is in Sunday and Monday's Chitas. Yes, it's Chitas is short, today's Chitas is shorter, tomorrow's Chitas is even shorter. Okay, Friday's a little longer, Shabbos is again pretty short.
It was very long Sunday.
Sunday and Monday was exceedingly long. You know why? There's a good reason. Because you want to give a Levi the aliyah of the golden calf. Because the Levim did not make the golden calf.
Wow.
So the only way to give a Levi the aliyah of Egel Zav, the whole Pasha from the beginning till the Egel is to the Kohen, and then the whole story of the Egel is to the Levi, and then the rest of the Pasha is little aliyahs because there's no more psukim left. The aliyahs are not distributed equally because you want to give a Levi because Levim did not be mishtatev. It's not, in other words, for them it's not bad to read that story because their ancestors were clean from the Chet Egel. So that's how the Pasha is arranged. Okay. Why am I saying this? I forgot why I'm saying this.
Did you study Chumash if you study Rashi,
not in the pasuk. Today's
There's a reason I'm telling this to you. Oh, I'm getting old.
something in the Rashi.
We got 5 or 6 rolls. In the Unzer book, there are 3 rolls. We got 5 rolls. Okay, I forgot why I'm saying it. As soon as I change the subject back, I'll remember it, how this game is played usually. There was a reason why I brought that up, but I can't remember the reason why. What says in the Torah, the Gemara doesn't bring. And what the Gemara brings does not say in the Torah. The whole thing is odd. The whole thing is odd. It doesn't make any sense. So I forgot why I brought the Egel. I'm sorry for digressing with the Egel Azov. Let's go back to the text. The fun goof is mashma. This question itself proves as der uftu von Chamische Besivan, that what happened on Friday, the 5th of Sivan, b'shayches to the achones for Matan Torah, in as much as preparing for Matan Torah is concerned. Now look at the next 3 words, girls. Look at the next 3 words. Ubefrat hachones von Moshe. Specifically, Moshe Rabbeinu's personal preparation to be the intermediate who's going to get us the Torah. The Tzachayis Be'ikir is emphasized, is brought out primarily in the minyan from Bana Mizbeach for Chul and Moshe Rabbeinu building a Mizbeach. So a bunch of stuff happened that day, right? None of those things were the reason why Moshe doesn't climb the mountain. Oh, I know why I brought the Egel Azov. I know why I brought the Egel Azov. It was in yesterday's Chitas, or it was in the Chitas of Monday. The Torah describes very dramatically how Moshe moves out of the camp. Remember that? The Jews they sin. And the first thing Moshe Rabbeinu does is triage, right? He has to keep them alive. So he arranges that the people who actually did the Egel should be killed one way or another way or a third way. And then he immediately goes up to the Eivishter and says, you got to forgive him. And he basically blackmails God. If you don't like them, you don't like me. If you like me, you got to like them. He tells the Eivishter this is non-negotiable. It's such an interesting story. Hashem gave Moshe a job to look after the Jewish people. And Hashem says to Moshe, leave me alone, I'm done with the Jewish people. And Moshe says, I'm not going to let you go. Hashem says, why not? He says, he gave me a job to look after the Jewish people. But I'm telling you to leave me alone. And Moshe says, sorry, sir, I already got the job. And I'm going to do it till the end. That's the exchange. Hashem says to Moshe, leave me. I told you to watch the Jewish people, to look after them. Now I'm saying, Hanichali, stop watching the Jewish people. And Moshe says, you gave me a job and I'm going to do it. So Moshe says, Hashem says, but I am now telling you to cease and desist. And Moshe says, I only take instructions once. I mean, it's such a deep story, really. It's not for now. We'll talk about the Egel, I don't know, Toshin Peches, when you're married to the baby, and Mitzvah Hashem gives unto date. But we're going to get to that story at some point in this syllabus. But one of the most interesting things is when this all happens, Moshe goes to war for the Jewish people. He goes to war for them. He pushes Hashem as far as he could. But after he sort of succeeds, he does something very strange. He moves out of the camp. He separates himself. There's a duality to this all. Moshe fights for the Jews and fights for the Jews and fights for the Jews and fights for the Jews. But he lets them know how disappointed he is. He keeps the Jewish people intact. He doesn't let the Eibush destroy the Jewish people, like Rashi says. If a stool with 3 legs cannot stand, the 3 legs being Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov, how is a stool with 1 leg going to stand? He refuses to let the Eibush to get rid of the Jewish people and replace them. But at the same time, Moshe Rabbeinu moves away from the rest of the Jewish people a tchum Shabbos, which is about approximately 1 kilometer. The amount of distance which you cannot walk on Shabbos, minus an inch, so they can walk. He's literally as close to the camp, far away from the camp as one is, that you could barely walk on Shabbos that distance. And he remains isolated for months till the Mishkan is built. And Hashem tells Moshe, again, very poignant stuff. Hashem tells Moshe, Im harav bekas, va'talmid bekas, mi yakarvan. The teacher is angry, the student is angry. Who's going to be nice to them? Hashem says to Moshe, now I'm angry. You got to be nice. Tomorrow you'll be angry, I'll be nice. And Hashem tells Moshe that we can't both be angry at the same time. Someone's got to think about him. So how angry was the Eibishter if he tells Moshe, Imarav Bekas, Vatalmud Bekas, I'm angry, you are angry, who's going to be Makadav? Then now if you're angry, what do you care? What's the answer? He wasn't exactly angry, you understand? But it's a very powerful story. Moshe moves out of the camp. He fights for the Jews with everything he has. He sacrifices himself recklessly. But then he moves out. And the Torah describes very beautifully the reverence, the derech eretz that the Jewish people have. Moshe would get up to walk, and everybody stopped. And they stood and they watched him. He was a kilometer away. It's a great distance. 2,000 amis. It's about 3,000 feet. A kilometer is over 3,000 feet. But they could see him, right? There was the desert. It was flat. They could see him. And nobody moves. Nobody turns away until Moshe disappears inside his tent. And the cloud came and stood at the entrance to Moshe Rabbeinu's tent. Moshe Rabbeinu's home was called Ohel Moed, the place of meeting, until the Mishkan would be put up. And then the Mishkan, the tabernacle, would become the Ohel Moed, the place of meeting, for the few months after Yom Kippur, when Moshe came down the mountain for the third time, until they built the Mishkan and the Eibishter moved into his permanent dwelling. Moshe Rabbeinu's home was called Ohel Moed, the Eibishter's house, Hashem's meeting place. So the Jews would watch the Shekhinah come down in the form of a fire and stand outside his tent, a cloud, and they would watch Moshe Rabbeinu go in, and they knew that the Eibishter and Moshe Rabbeinu were commiserating, they're fabreging, they're schmoozing. And they would say to one another, Asher Yelud Isha, how fortunate is a human being that he's so certain that when he goes into his house, the Eibishter is going to follow him in. When you learn Chumash Rashi, just Chumash Rashi, in various places in the Chumash, Rashi wants to give you the impression that the Eibishter was Moshe Rabbeinu's school teacher. Later on, the Eibishter was Moshe Rabbeinu's Rosh Yeshiva. And later on, still, Moshe Rabbeinu's Rav. And a teacher, and Rosh Yeshiva. And a Rav cannot say to the student, today I'm ignoring you. We talk to God all the time. Does the Eibishter answer? I'm sure he does, but we don't hear it yet. Moshe and the Eibishter had a relationship like a person talks to a person. Moshe asked a question, he got an answer. Period. Why? The Eibishter was the Melamed, and Moshe is the Talmud. A teacher has to teach a student. It's a very powerful story. Hashem talks to Moshe like I'm talking to you. Not that he saw him, but that Moshe Rabbeinu's teacher was the Eibishter, and when Moshe Rabbeinu had a question, you don't know the answer, you go to the Eibishter and ask him, and the Eibishter would tell him what to do. It's very simple. So Moshe's relationship with the Eibishter is very, very unique. Very, very special. And yet, Friday morning, Moshe cannot get around to going up the mountain to meeting his teacher. Now, if your teacher was God, I think you'd show up to the appointment, don't you think? You think? Maybe. If your teacher was God, but you could communicate with him, how would you miss a meeting? I mean, I don't know what the girls are into, but if my teacher was Babe Ruth, I'd show up to the meeting. Lou Gehrig, Reggie Jackson, anybody who's important to me? Who's important to me? A sports hero, an entertainer, a singer. Everybody's got heroes. Moshe Rabbeinu's teachers, the Eibishter himself. And they communicate, and he can't get up the mountain for the meeting on Friday. He's busy. What's he busy with? Many things. But the Gemara seems to forget all the bagels, all the rolls, and focuses only on the bagel. And the Rebbe's question is why? Now, girls, we need to pause and break because it's a very big mitzvah to make people feel happy. So we have to break and pause every week because it makes people feel happy. But before I do, I want you to guess the chap of this sikha. The chap, that means what is the aha of the sikha? What is the Rebbe going to do that's going to make us appreciate why this bagel is so important? Okay? The hint is Moshe builds a mizbeach and brings one carbon on it. Try to guess. I know this is not fair. Try to guess what is the Rebbe going to do? What's going to be the chiropractic shift? I feel so much better, yeah? What is the Rebbe going to do at this point in the Sikha? Now I understand. What is going to be the chiropractic shift, what they call the JLI world, the paradigm shift, that's going to make you appreciate why this is so important that all the roles are forgotten. We speak only about the bagel. Guess.
Moshe his carbon stood for everyone's carbon, and he stood for every person building the Mizbeach.
That's not a paradigm shift, that's obvious. I need a paradigm shift. What the answer is, girls? It's not about the carbon, it's about the Mizbeach.
Plot twist.
That's the chap. Moshe Bonam Mizbeach, Hikral of carbon. The Hikral of carbon is secondary. It's the Mizbeach. That's the chap. The Gemara misses all the roles and goes straight to the bagel. But the bagel is not the one extra carbon that Moshe Rabbeinu brought in addition to all the carbones that the Bechayda brought. It's the altar, and he builds it himself. Now, I didn't say this before, but I'll say it now. There was only one Mizbeach. There were no two Mizbeachs. This Mizbeach that Moshe built was the Mizbeach on which Moshe Rabbeinu brought one carbon, and it's the same Mizbeach on which all the other carbonas were brought. The Chiddush of the Gemara isn't the carbon. The Chiddush of the Gemara is that this Mizbeach Moshe built all by his lonesome. And I will see you in 5 minutes. Im Yirtzeh Hashem.